Welcome. My name is Chip Connolly. I'm the managing partner of Connolly Bove Lodge in Hutz. This is our second annual Cleantech Forum. We held our first forum in this same room about this time last year. And last year we held two additional forums, one on biotechnology and one on web-based 2.0 software companies last fall. And we've had great turnouts and great responses, and we really appreciate you all coming out during a very busy time, I'm sure, for everyone.
That really culminates with CalPERS declaring in March of 2005 that Cleantech was an investment sector worthy of institutional pension plan money. And that's really where you see the word Cleantech really start to get going. There was a trade organization that had coined that term a little bit earlier. CalPERS borrowed from it. And so you went from roughly a half a dozen firms in 2005 that had a focus on really energy, but more broadly defined Cleantech, to 172 proclaiming on their websites by 2006, mid-2006, that they were energy and clean tech investors. So you see this massive explosion of manager interest, and you see a commensurate explosion of funding coming into earlier stage energy and resource-oriented investments.
I mean, much like clean tech, energy efficiency is one of these terms that can represent a number of different markets. I think to break it down just a little bit, you've got service companies, product companies, and a number of technologies focused on these markets. On the service side, and I think we've been interested in a number of, in all of those for a variety of different reasons. On the service side, obviously the city of Philadelphia and utilities across the United States have been interested in both at a state level, have been mandated to provide a certain level of megawatt or kilowatt reductions, both in the residential, commercial, and industrial building stock. And the execution of these retrofits of lighting, of insulation, window retrofits to reduce baseload usage of power have driven the creation of some very significantly sized businesses. On the product side, this feeds a large opportunity for building products manufacturers in otherwise a really challenging real estate development market for the past several years, both in the residential as well as in the commercial sides. The last area of energy efficiency, and this is a bit apart from the residential industrial efficiency argument, is that of smart grid, which is fundamentally an energy efficiency argument and the installation of intelligence across the transmission and distribution infrastructure, not just at the meter, but also across the infrastructure to enable, that enables greater intelligence for the utility across that infrastructure.
The first comment I have is about clean tech in general. I think as Ben said, certainly there was a focus around alternative energy plays, but now clean tech is such a broad, expansive term that it's hard to know, what's really in or what's really out. So I'd argue that clean tech investments have been going on for decades, whereas maybe alternative energy investments have been, within the past, 10, 15 years or so for a lot of them. So that with a caveat, I think that generally for Ben Franklin, we're seeing, I think, a lot of very interesting companies coming up. So I think the deal flow has been strong. I think the companies are getting better. But I also don't see deals that potentially are so expansive. I think people are finding ways they can exploit niches. So they might not be shooting for the next storage technology for the grid or something, which could be revolutionary. But they're finding niches that I think are going to be very profitable. They'll make nice sized companies. Not sure if they'll make companies of the size that Element will enjoy investing in, but nonetheless see a lot of really good companies finding a way through the morass of how do I succeed to come up with, I think, really good and compelling business plans.
So what is it we're looking for? Dramatic revenue growth in a very short period of time. I mean, it's a very simple equation, but that's what we need because that's what leads to a nice big exit, and that's what we get paid to do. The components of dramatic revenue growth are great management teams in enormous markets. Supported by either some type of unique IP position or, in the case of a company like Tangent, a very unique set of customer relationships that have been built up over 30 years, something that gives them a true competitive advantage.
And what we've seen, especially with the new administration and the outgoing administration, a sea change really in priorities at a federal level. Whereas energy and climate, energy policy, climate, were really the drivers of funding in these markets as recently as 24 months ago, those priorities have shifted dramatically to being more focused on job creation. And along with that, you've seen a shift in federal priorities, if not dollars at this point, away from solar and wind, and we're seeing that reflected in some of the pricing in these markets to energy efficiency and some more capital efficient business models. I think that's a shift that we're seeing taking place both at the federal level as well as at a number of state houses across the United States, and that's kind of a trend that we're watching closely as our companies compete in those markets.
Some of you may be aware, some not, that the DOE, Secretary Chu wanted to establish a lot of national hubs, for specific areas of energy-related research, and I think as the Obama administration started, they wanted to set up 8 hubs across the United States. I think Congress funded 3 of them. Well, we were lucky enough that in our region there was a consortium of companies, universities, and other partners that got together and solicited for one of these DOE hubs, and we're very fortunate that we were granted the DOE hub, which is going to be focused on energy-efficient building technology. If you heard President Obama's State of the Union address, he linked, what are we going to do with infrastructure, make this infrastructure more efficient, create new jobs. I mean, it was a central theme in his innovation tenets as part of his address. So here in Philadelphia, with Penn State University being one of the lead partners, I think the DOE awarded almost $130 million to this region to become sort of the center of excellence for that kind of building technology in the United States. So as long as we can continue to nurture and grow from that platform, Philadelphia region may become, a well-recognized, perhaps world-recognized center of excellence around that technology.
So our view is that as we come out of this 2011 timeframe and into 2012, 2013, you'll end up with about 40 firms with some significant focus on the space. Let's call it 40 to 60, with roughly 2/3 being generalist funds, where Cleantech or Energy Tech is a part of what they do, and the rest will be dedicated funds like Element and Enertech.
My advice, if you're a company that's seeking to get federal dollars, I think you start with things like SBIRs. The best thing is not to sort of wait for an announcement saying we're looking for A, B, or C. Are you the company that can fill that need? I think companies that are successful sort of get in the policymakers' eyes by doing all sorts of things, from writing white papers to asking folks in the government who are charged with policy, what they do, how they could fit in, and try to get federal policy and money, earmarked, if you will, not necessarily through earmarks in general, but earmarked for their need. So pre-positioning themselves when money becomes available, that they're on the list of companies that could receive some funding.
When it comes to making an impact and breaking the muscle memory, we have one simple message: that measurement is the key to management. If you do not count the kilowatts and look at how you use them in your home, or the BTUs that may be required to heat something like water, or look at the ratio of lighting compared to the total electricity consumption in your commercial property, you have no adequate means to make a decision. We launched in 2007 what was the first return on investment table, breaking down the actual paybacks. And we were delighted to see that many of the perceptions we could challenge with real math.
Having said all of that, America is the last of the game. The markets in Europe have absolutely have been exploding for many years, and that's obviously increased the demand for solar technology specifically. And the one country that really, quite frankly, is taking up that ball and run with it is China. And as much as it hurts me to say this, America is very much at the very end of the tail there in terms of having the IP, and secondly, having the manufacturing capabilities within the solar industry.
From our perspective, the LED market is changing so quickly, and it's evolving at such a rapid pace that it's something that you really have to take a moment in time, and without creating a legacy situation, where screw in, screw out is great because you can replace that, and you'll see par 38s and other lights just this past quarter started being sold in Home Depot and Lowe's. The A19 is going to be a big product this year coming out, the Edison light bulb, and we keep our eyes open on all the different technologies that are available in the lighting space, not just LEDs. You have plasma lighting, you have other types of technologies which are coming into their own right now.
What I've learned in the energy business is that it's smart to be the third investor. So the first guy invests to prove the technology. The second guy invests to get a couple reference customers. And these guys, unfortunately, our predecessors are sort of dying on the finish line each time. And then we come along, hopefully. Now it's happened that we've been on the other side of this, but we hopefully come along and are the third investors who invest in crossing what entrepreneurs typically call the valley of death. And that's investing in sales and marketing. And it's just brutal selling to energy. We sell B2B, right? So we're selling to utilities, we're selling to oil and gas companies, and they are extremely reluctant buyers. So the advantage is they're very large. The disadvantage is they're afraid to get fired. And so innovation, the nature of the energy business that I compete in is GE, Siemens, ABB selling to major utilities and oil and gas companies where they're very comfortable selling to each other because the sales cycles are so long. So we come along at Acorn with capital. We're a publicly traded company, and we put our arms around these small companies and say, come on in to the customers, it's fine, the water's fine, we're going to continue to finance this company through thick and thin, and hopefully that's the sort of magic sauce. So if I were advising an entrepreneur, I would say, try to be that third guy, or the fourth guy, or the fifth guy.
You need to understand who your competition is. So you need to build a competitive matrix and figure out who else is out there in the landscape and understand exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are. You need to plan the obsolescence of your own product. If you don't, somebody else will. And you have to understand how far you can take that product within your own specific set of markets, and hopefully or certainly have a secondary product and or service to follow on with very quickly. Because if you don't, you will find that you now have a lot of competition and they're getting better at your own game than you are.
I'd say the single most important wealth creator in Cleantech has been people that have been, we have no shortage of technology, right? Converge's technology is 25-year-old technology. It's being applied today. And what's missing is the ability to be able to apply business models, so strategy, to sort of short circuit all the reasons that people don't implement that technology. And that's what I believe is so it's creative risk sharing and business models and strategy. So I think strategy is the number one challenge.
I think for us it's been education of the customer. When we talk to the CFO, or we work at Johns Hopkins, we've done a lot of work there. There are a lot of other technologies that walk through the door. HVAC, controls, and other types of technologies. And the individuals we work with, they're sitting there trying to compare apples and oranges and saying, okay, well, if I implement this technology or not that one. They have all these different ROI models in front of them. We've actually taken the approach that we run into these other technologies and these other companies to partner with them. And so now we can approach a client and we say, okay, well, we do the lighting component and we have other partners do HVAC and controls and other types of technologies. And we work together to create a holistic approach where we can give them one ROI model on implementing everything across the board.
And what came to me in a very singular way was that the impact can be done at home. And this idea of thinking globally but acting locally could actually be reversed. We could actually think locally with our wallets, what is going to happen tomorrow when we pay the utility bill, and the byproduct could be actions that have global implications. So the money, whether you are on the investing side or the entrepreneurial side, I believe in America, is in this massive $1 trillion footprint of commercial and residential properties to reduce the waste. That 25% of the world's power for 5% of the population is like every 8th grade kid that would be 200 pounds. We don't need to take one and put them on a diet. we need to reduce across the board. And there is so much money that can be made and so much good that can come from it. Those little touch points are really our mission for the next decade. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity after a couple years in the hunt.